Welcome to the ISM Rochester Lunch and Learn webinar series. We will be hosting our monthly membership meeting next week, February 15th, with our featured speaker, Lynn Wilglander, who will be presenting part 2 of our persuasion series. So please be sure to register for this. We would like to make today's program an interactive session. So please put your questions and comments in our chat function or the Q&A. And we will get to those questions. We are going to stop periodically throughout the program to answer your questions or mention your comments as well. Our speaker for today will be Klauss Villalva, who is from Brazil. He is the Global Category and Sourcing Lead for Capital Projects, Indirect Procurement Lead for Latin America for Corteva Agriscience, with over 28 years of experience. I have a few fun facts about Klauss. First of all, he loves to vacation and travel with his family, enjoys watching movies, running, playing soccer, watching his soccer team playing. Yes, there is a theme here. And going to the beach. And an interesting fact I wanted everybody to share was that Klauss lived in southern Alabama for 3.5 years. So he has quite an extensive background. At this point, I'm going to turn the program over to Klauss.
Thanks, Kathy. My pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite. And as you said, meant to be a very interactive session. So please interrupt anytime as you go through the discussion, okay? And of course, also not only question, but also if you have any insights on the topic that I'm been sharing, please feel free to engage as well. So we share some topics to cover today. So things like key components of a quality capital playbook, how to develop an effective capital procurement strategy, linking with business needs, the importance of stakeholders' engagement on this process, how to utilize spending data and market intelligence information to improve your playbook, how to define the priorities, SWOT analysis, risk, needs, what do you need from leadership, how to define your roadmap from the capital category, what components you should have on that, and last but not least, how to engage the teams and share the contents, your stakeholders. So hopefully we can, throughout the presentation, you're going to see elements of these different topics, and we're going to be able to navigate through them. So I plan to share, the components of a quality playbook. As I said, we in Corteva, we have a standard template, and we discuss quite a bit from an indirect standpoint. What are the key elements for a quality playbook? And we keep enhancing that, right, one year after the other. So that is what I'm kind of going to share with you, navigating through the contents. And of course, deep diving on capital construction, right? As we go through the different topics, I plan to deep dive on the capital stuff, okay? I didn't mention, but I'm a CME by background. Have worked in different, production facilities as a CME, both in Brazil and US, and then moved it to engineering. And then during the last couple of years, I have been playing this role of the global lead from a procurement standpoint for capital projects, and more recently also have a second hat to lead indirects here in Latin America. Okay. So what kind of some of the contents that we should have, right? So a good executive summary where you can share with people, you can, identify your opportunities, success, business goals, and so forth. Some of the team objectives, right? What is your team? What are the key business stakeholders? So what's the supporting model that you have? And then from a category profile, what is your taxonomy? What is your supply-based spend analysis, supply intelligence or market intelligence? What's your key subcategory commodities? What are the, when I say key, really the areas that you should focus on, right? And then what's your spend summary? Okay. Going keep going, we should have a good strategy and opportunity analysis. I would like to reinforce that as a leader and category leader, you need to really take the time to understand what's your strategy, what's the overview of the strategy, how do you go by in terms of opportunities, of prioritizations, KPIs, okay? And then last but not least, what's your category plan roadmap? What are your key projects that are going to focus? What are your project plans? What are the savings initiatives that you're going to focus on? I'm talking about savings, but can be other stuff, right? So it can be working capital. It could be specific deficiencies that you have on the capital area that are, as a procurement organization, you need to work with engineering to improve, right? What's the value proposition? So some of the elements of the contents, okay? When you talk about executive summary, let me say something before that. There are some I'm calling key enablers, okay, for a successful playbook. So before we go into the weeds, I would like to talk a little bit about these key enablers. The top one for me, and perhaps the most important, is to understand what is the strategy and goals for the area that we serve. In our case, engineering, capital execution. What are their strategies? Again, what are the areas that they have problems? What are the opportunities? Where are we going to focus in the coming year? And of course, there is when you think from a global standpoint, there is normally no one size fits all solution. So each region has its own, needs and priorities. So engaging with not only the global leader, but also the regional leaders, I think it's very important to understand that, okay? Something very critical as well, making sure that you get your historical spending data. I cannot stress enough how important it is to have that, understand the breakdown. Here in Corteva, we have a team dedicated to data analytics for procurement. So we have several different Power BI reports, and one of them is just focused on capex or capital projects, right? So I have data from all the different countries, from all the sites, all the suppliers. So we tend to say we torture the data as much as we can. So that's really important to understand your historical data, the breakdown, and again, areas of opportunities, okay? From a capital standpoint, again, as I said, I'm going to jump back and forth, between the strategy for a good playbook, but also really deep diving on capital. Something that has showed to me over the years that is extremely important is to, as a procurement person and leader, to understand what is the next year capital plan? What is the 5-year capital plan, right? So what are the areas that the company is dedicating resource? What are the areas that the company wants to invest money and upgrade, okay? So that's very critical. We normally have the next year plan consolidated between September and October. And that's one of the first, I keep knocking the door of the engineering leader, say, hey, once you have that, please share. And that was something that we really changed over the last couple of years with this position that I currently have, and really helps not only me, the playbook, but also the buyers as a whole, okay? Another key enabler is a quality and good market intelligence data. So we also have in Corteva a market intelligence team that helps us with, going through the general, and available data in the market. They have a special access to some database, international database, and that helps tremendously. What are the key players, right? Some general cost information. On the case of capital, information about tendencies, where there is a tendency to invest more, which region, which areas, some countries. From a commodity price standpoint, how we're going to have, what's the forecast for the key commodities that would influence, construction cost, equipment cost, We pay a lot of attention on metals price, steel, nickel, and others, aluminum. So again, having these data intelligence to help you understand, key points or opportunities. Like for instance, we're seeing a decline in steel price. So we launched an initiative to make sure that we have some sort of script or playbook for the buyers to engage with the equipment suppliers to take advantage of that. So if we knock their doors now and try to get a quote, and if we compare with something that we quoted 6, 8, 10 months ago, we would expect the price to be a little lower if they're based on steel, because steel price, they're basically close to the pre-pandemic levels. So having this type of information helps you to identify these needs, right? These opportunity areas, okay? And a final topic that I consider very important enabler is that a good category playbook should be developed by the team, not only by you. So I always tell my team, right? So it's not my playbook, it's our playbook. And they have given me this feedback, how critical, how important it was for them to participate on the development of the playbook, having a seat on the table, so to speaking, right? So helping develop and feel the ownership of the document and to apply the document on day to day, okay? So again, I'm calling these key enablers. We can probably list orders, but I feel that these, if you have these 5 topics to begin with, you're kind of setting yourself for success already, okay? Again, any questions, any insights, please don't hesitate to engage, okay, to ask. So going back to the kind of the playbook contents, the first one I would like to explore is executive summary, okay? How to define what is your category value proposition, what you're going to focus, right? How we're going to support, in our case, engineering to develop, the capital project successfully. What's your category spend? What you're expecting for the year, right? And then what are key opportunities, keys to success, and key business goals? I'm going to touch base on some points that have been very important for Corteva, okay? And I think they're important for anyone. With this post-pandemic world, we're still seeing a lot of opportunities on equipment lead times. So we keep on our forefront a good, supply relationship management with suppliers. We work with capital team to have a very strong expediting process. We have worked with them to identify the long lead items and place POs or purchase orders as soon as possible to the equipment. We have been having some success on that area. And we really pair up with them to raise the hand of any early signs of delays for us to intervene. So this is a key point for us. And I think in a good capital playbook nowadays should have that, okay, as a key opportunity. I mentioned already about softening markets. We're seeing some softening markets. We of course, at the same token, we see inflation in different countries, US, Brazil, European Union. So we need to also play a close eye on that. So that's another key opportunity, okay? Something also that I consider very important for a capital playbook is the focus on competitive bidding, okay? We as professionals in this area of capital, we know that for you to do a good competitive bidding, you need to have a good scope. You need to have all the details possible. If you don't have, probably if you go through a lump sum, you're gonna drive, change orders and these sort of things. But having this emphasis on competitive bidding is really important, okay? Especially with the engineering leaders and project managers, okay? As a procurement organization, we always chatter to generate savings. So having these in front of people as a key opportunity, I think that's critical. In Corteva, we have been working quite a bit to identify list of preferred suppliers and align with the stakeholders for them to really drive utilization of these preferred suppliers, right? We have been focused quite a bit on MSAs, master service agreements, with these key suppliers. So having these alignments with engineering that this is a focus area. We wanted to pair up. We want you to help us define the preferred supplier, of course, but it's like helping me help you. The more you use preferred suppliers, the better it is, and we're going to generate more savings. And of course, preferred suppliers, you can have global preferred suppliers, you can have regional preferred suppliers. Again, I don't see there is a one-size-fits-all solution, right? You need to engage on a global and regional level and define that with them. Okay. I mentioned already about a good relationship management process with suppliers, with good KPIs, with your strategic suppliers, of course. Not going to have that with every single supplier, right? So I think that's something important. Something also that we drive quite a bit in Corteva is the right, operating model from a procurement standpoint. We're always try to optimize that. And together with that, what are the tools that we need to use? We have a specific tool that I think it's kind of the linchpin of the whole process, which is an electronic project procurement plan. For each capital project over a certain threshold, in the case $100,000, so we lower that threshold a lot. We ask the project teams to develop with the buyer or with the capital buyer electronic project procurement plans as early as possible during the project development phase. These allow us to connect with a preferred supplier, understand the project strategy, negotiate that, and so forth. Okay. So again, some key elements that we have, and of course we're gonna have keys to success related with that, and some of kind of examples of business goals that we have in 2023. So we wanted to have minimize or having no critical project delays due to procurement, due to these long lead items or extended equipment lead times. We want to bring savings, of course, right? So not only year over year, SVM, saving versus market, but also something that is a big deal for Corteva as a pure play ag company is really payment terms. We have an extended cash cycle, again, because of the industry that we play with, the ag business. So we really work very hard on getting that. And we always try to reduce, non-PO commitment, tail spending, regular procurement stuff as well, okay? Improvement system, I mentioned about that, system process tools, so new operating models, list of preferred suppliers, reinforce, these electronic project procurement plan that I mentioned, okay? And performance of suppliers. So that's something I should have mentioned that on key opportunity. That's always an opportunity. We obviously, when we have poor performance suppliers, it creates a lot of stress. So the more you can with your strategic suppliers, you can manage their performance well. You can make sure that you have a good SRM process, well implemented. You develop new master service agreements with the suppliers that you don't have these service agreements. I think that's very important. And we're always assessing EPCM and construction companies. We're always, assessing. For 2023, we're looking for some stuff in Latin America and MEA, but because of the volume that we invest in North America, I would say that's a constant discussion with the engineering team, right? We're always assessing performance and seeking for good new players and so forth. Okay, so I spend a good chunk of time on this executive summary because I think it's very important that you spend time to really work through that. I can tell you that if I look on our 2022 playbook versus 2023, it's an area that we changed quite a bit on the playbook because again, priorities change and we need to keep evolving. Okay. Any question on that? I dumped a lot on you guys and girls. Any questions? Comments?
I don't see any questions just yet, but if anybody has a question, just please put it in the chat or use our Q&A area.
Good. Okay, let's proceed. The next kind of playbook content is team objectives. And the first thing I would mention about team objective is to really map well your team from a procurement standpoint. what are the buyers that are supporting procurement, capital procurement, right? So I have some people reporting directly to me, but we made investment last year in a little over 50 countries, I think. So there is no way that I will have people in 50 countries, right? So I rely on a leverage procurement organization. So mapping well, what are these players? What are these people? Making sure that you engage them on your rituals, on your monthly reviews, that they receive guidance from you from a capital procurement standpoint. The experience has showed to me that it's very critical to understand who are your buyers, okay? And also, I think every company works to some extent with EPCM buyers. So make sure that you map them, that you have a good training package to them. So again, understanding your team, I think that's the very first thing, okay, on a good category capital playbook strategy. At the same token, is absolutely critical to map well your stakeholders. Excuse me. So we really take the time to understand what are the stakeholders, who we need to engage on a periodic basis, what rituals we need to have in place to drive continuous improvement. Okay, so how to make sure that we have target engagements and rituals that are going to drive continuous improvement. I think that's very, very critical. And I feel, based on conversation with other companies, that sometimes we underestimate the importance of having these engagements, right? We're like with the engineering leaders that we have, I talk with them every month, if not 2-3 times a month. So it's an area that I focus quite a bit, but also production people that are going to receive the capital project. We invest a lot in R&D, so the R&D stakeholders. So making sure that you map well the stakeholders and you're engaging frequently with them. Okay. Another playbook content that we have is the category profile. That's really where we deep dive on, what are the areas that we spend money, how we're spending the money, what are the key players. So the first thing that we took the time to review was the taxonomy for our category. And a taxonomy is one of those things that people tend to perhaps think that is not important. But as you take the time to define what's your taxonomy, what is your level 1, level 2, level 3 breakdown, and you implement that with your data management team, that would help you big time to have the accurate data and accurate and reliable data, I would say. So in our case, we define, capital project as execution, planning execution, mainly the EPCM companies, EPC companies. Okay. What are the process equipment for? We have mainly 2 platforms, right? Crop protection and seeds. What are the processing equipment for these 2 platforms? So that's we have these broken down in our taxonomy. What are some of the construction related stuff, right? Civil, electrical, mechanical, general construction contractor. What are these key points? Okay, and also general equipment and infrastructure. So things that are any facility to have, right? Things like warehouse, security system, buildings, generators, electricity, utilities as a whole, right? And then something also that we took the time, we have an MRO category. So I have a peer that leads MRO on a global base. So how do you, from a capital standpoint, how do you interface with them? So we took the time to make sure that our taxonomy would match with them, and that we're fully aligned on that. And we changed it on a company base, right? So it's not only for capital. We're taking advantage of the agreements that they have, and we were breaking down the data based on that. And of course, there's also we bring other benefits like UNFPC codes and again mapping your spending with general industry standard in terms of breaking down data and this sort of thing. So that really helps. Okay, we have been working on developing some BI reports to get through the UNFPC data address, contacts from the companies and this sort of thing. So to be readily available for the buyers, okay? So as you think about how you break down the data, okay, that's something very important. From a capital standpoint, the key information that we have is how much we spent last year. What is the number of suppliers? We have been also working, as we think about reducing tail spending, we have been working to reduce the number of suppliers. I would say that in the last 3 to 4 years, we're reducing 20% the number of suppliers. So it is still high. We would like to have less, but at least we are on a positive trend on that. Okay. In our case, I would say that from a subcategory standpoint, in terms of spending, we have 3 major ones. Construction companies as a whole and construction service, if we want to expand a little bit more. EPC and EPCM service, people that we do either the full-blown project with them or just, engineering, procurement, and construction management. And last but not least, mechanical equipment. And so I would say these are the top 3 major tiers that we have from a subcategory standpoint. I mentioned already that we do investment in all the regions. And what are the top suppliers, right? So we also work to make sure that we have the top suppliers identified and we have firm plans with them. And then we go through what are the market characteristics. You heard me saying before that you need to have a global perspective, but also a regional perspective. So on these market characteristics, we really take the time to understand what are the different markets that we're playing, right? For instance, in the US, we invest quite a bit in the eastern. We invest in the eastern, more towards the eastern coast. We invest on Midwest, and we invest in California. We have an important site in California. So, of course, it is different, right? To make investments on these 3 areas. We also invest a little bit in the Houston area. But every area is amazing, even though inside the US it's completely different. The approach, the strategy, the players. So having specific from these market characteristics. So if US is different, let alone the other regions, right? Latin America, EMEA. So it's not there is no one kind of silver bullet that we're going to do in every region and going to work. Okay. And last but not least, what are the current relationships? I mentioned about that before in terms of SRM. What are them? How you go by improving them? What's the voice of the business? What the business is going to tell you from engineering, procurement standpoint, okay? Something that we drive, we work to drive, but has not been so easy. It's what we call global competitive sourcing. So in other words, how can you supply equipment from low-cost countries into the US or into the European region or zone? With the pandemic, you probably have heard and know that logistic costs have been very high. They reduced it over 2022, but they're still high. And lead times, as they are, more exaggerated when compared before the pandemic. This doesn't help on this area, but we put together a whole framework of to drive any equipment over a certain threshold to have an assessment if we can provide that from low-cost countries. Okay, I think that's an important component as well. Okay. So as we continue, you can do all kinds of breakdowns, right? Especially with Power BI, Fit tools nowadays. In our case here in Capital, we take the time to review by region, by country, to identify the top 5, top 7, 10 countries. Also to review by site. So we have a breakdown in our Power BI report by location for us to know the top 10 locations from an investment standpoint. So again, all these little things, when you sum up right then, it really helps you to frame it from a category standpoint. What are the priorities? What are the regions of the globe that we need to pay attention? In 2023, we did an upgrade to our Capital Playbook from a spending breakdown standpoint. to have then split by region and by different tiers of spending. So we're concentrating on, we're splitting between anything below 25K, things between 25 and 250, and anything spending over 250K. So this is really to help us to identify better the buying channels, if we can use more alternative buying channels, if we have, catalog opportunity that we could leverage with capital, service center models, how can we reduce tail spending. I mentioned about, number of suppliers. So we have way more suppliers that we spend less than $25,000 than we have with the other tiers. So that's an area that we're focusing. Again, you can break it down your data if you have the data, and if you have, a good team to help you. You can, break it down whatever way it pleases you or that you need. Okay, so I'm just sharing with you some examples of what we do. But again, having your data broken down and understanding that, I think, is very critical. Okay. On this category, on this part of the playbook, you also normally list some key accomplishments in 2022 to relate with the data. So I think it's also, we try in Corteva to recognize people as much as we can. So that's an area that I think it is important. Okay. Something that I remember about a key accomplishment that I should have mentioned before, I guess. Something that I have been seeing a lot of positive drive in the last couple of years is really on having a good customer complaint, system. We call SCAR in Corteva. So having a good system that you can exercise that with your with your suppliers, and you can document the improvement plans. Some people from engineering felt that the suppliers would feel like punished with that, but actually what I'm seeing is the other way around. It's good. They appreciate when we document these complaints, and we go through a rigorous root cause analysis process with them, and agree with them on improvement action items, which could be from their side, but also from our side. So just wanted to reinforce that as a key component of a good capital procurement process. Okay. Yeah, normally on these parts of the context of the playbook context, we also talk about market intelligence. We have a standard set of slides from a market intelligence standpoint for each category. So we talk about things like steel, forecast as a key raw material, labor. We pay a lot of attention to labor, inflation impact in different parts of the globe, right? So and they have some analysis that they help us to do. Also, we work through lead times. Again, more recently has been a very hot topic, as we all know. So what's our key lead times? Which industry we need to pay attention? Something that we see in general, right? What we see in Corteva as we buy things in different parts of the globe is that equipment lead time as a whole is kind of stable. The good news is that it's not getting worse, but we really haven't seen yet a big improvement so far. We have some, I would say, some light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. Things like electrical components. We definitely saw that the worst situation during the pandemic was in general with electrical components, the lack of chips, worldwide speaking. But we see now that it's starting to get better. But we still pay a lot of attention, and we're kind of considering with the capital projects for electrical components, I would say around 3x the lead times before pandemic, okay, before COVID pandemic situation. Again, just wanted to share, and as depending on where you play on your space, on your area of work, you can have other things to pay attention, but I just wanted to share some of the things from the market intelligence that we use in Corteva, okay, for capital. And then comes another more strategic portion of the playbook content, where you're going to really go through the strategy, opportunity analysis. So what we have been doing here is we have a matrix that identify risks, success factors, support from procurement leadership team, and support from the business. So normally the buyers really appreciate having this section where we can really go through this. And I, like from a risk standpoint, already mentioned some of them. And one that I would like to reinforce that I'm sure is an opportunity in every single company is the early engagement of procurement as we develop a capital project. I always tell the engineering and project manager that how critical it is to engage procurement earlier. If you engage us earlier, the more value we can bring to the table, the more we can be part of the solution and not the problem. So I think this is getting momentum in Corteva. I think people is finally understanding that. And at the same token, we show KPIs, right? We show the benefits, we show the results. And I see a lot of positive movement on this direction, but keep reinforcing that with the team. Something that I think it's not exactly a focus in 2023, but something that we did already on this area that really helped us in procurement. Kind of in my engineering background, we upgraded quite a bit the documentation that we had from a capital procurement standpoint in our project delivery model in Corteva. We have a documented project delivery model. So we really took the time in 2021 to review the contents on that material, making sure that we have the best that we could from an engineer and procurement standpoint, and trained a lot of people in 2022. We plan to have some more training in 2023, but just wanted to highlight that for a good capital procurement strategy, you should this is an element, a key element of a good capital procurement strategy. Okay. So, and one of the risks, of course, is not following that process that I just described, right? Not engaging early procurement. Another risk that we see as a common theme across the globe is the availability of manpower and quality suppliers. So in general, we see a shortage of qualified people from a construction, engineering, design and build standpoint. So I think that's something that from a risk standpoint, a good capital procurement playbook should have, words on this regard, okay? And then what are the success factors, right? What we're going to do to drive in conjunction with the risks that I just mentioned. And then comes 2 points that I feel very, very strong about. It's what's the support that we need from your procurement leadership team? So, the upper management in the organization, my peers. So I really stress that as much as I can. And last but not least, from the business. So that's especially an area that I focus a lot to share with them, say, hey, that this is the kind of things, help me help you, right? So I need you to do this, to drive with your teams. And if we do that, I'm gonna be able to help you even more and generate more value to the capital projects, okay? In conjunction with this type of analysis, we also do a more traditional SWOT, right? Strength, threats, strength, weakness, threats, opportunities, and threats. So again, the buyers definitely appreciate this type of analysis quite a bit. And it's amazing when you put the team together, how many different things they come with, So it has helped me quite a bit to run a formal SWOT process, okay? And then the last playbook content that we have in our capital playbook is really the roadmap, with the category roadmap. And the category roadmap, we normally document what has been in the past, what are the improvements that we did in the past, what are the focus areas in 2023, and what we would like to see from next year and beyond standpoint, right? In this case, 2024 and beyond. So again, taking the time to do this exercise, not only focus on the short term, on the current year, but also in the future, I think that definitely helps. In conjunction with that, what are the top 5 capital projects or capital programs that you have running? So paying a special attention on them, making sure that you have the adequate engagement, that you have the adequate procurement support to all of them. Okay. An area that we also added with more stress in 2023 is what are the savings initiatives? So we took the time at the tail end of last year after we had the capital plan and some guidance from a procurement directive standpoint. We came up with some savings ideas and we are implementing them now. So we documented them, we put them in our playbook, and it's a way to help tracking them and make sure that we're moving the needle on them. Okay. And then KPIs. I mentioned that before, but it's something that I really drove and keep driving on our category for capital procurement. So what are the KPIs? Measure them on a monthly basis. Share. Have a dashboard approach, right, with a traffic light. Tracking closely. In the case of capital procurement in Corteva, we track savings. We track working capital gains. So as I mentioned, working capital is very important for Corteva. We have a broader procurement initiative we call working capital campaign to extend payment terms. So this has been a very hot topic and a common theme for us across the different procurement categories. Supplies on time payment, it's very important to pay on time. So this has been, as we extended payment terms, this is even more important. And last but not least, reduce non-PO spending. Okay, and then we have some charts that we review on a monthly basis that I just updated here on our playbook with the consolidated 2022 information. So these are the contents of the playbook. We also have some slides on the appendix. The majority of them are related with further data breakdown that we just didn't put on the initial contents. And by the way, my initial contents, we had like 32 slides, but really part of that was just, slides to change from one section to the other. I think in total we have like 17 slides that we change contents. So I think that's a good number. Anything around 15, 17, 18 slides, I think is good. If we start surpassing 20 slides to share contents, I think it's a little too much. Again, just our experience here, okay? So going back to the appendix to finish this topic on the presentation, I have a lot of data breakdown by region, by sub-commodity. We have commodity level 2, level 3, level 4. We have data breaking down by region, as I mentioned, with payment terms, with the key suppliers, with the key sites that we invest in each region. We have some further market intelligence data to support us, okay? And yeah, that's kind of the contents, okay? So if I go back to the key topics that I shared at the beginning that would be talking today. So we definitely went through the key components of a quality capital playbook. I really worked to explain to you how you develop the capital procurement strategy, linking with the business needs. I'm sure you heard several things from me about that. Stakeholder importance was the third bullet point. It's very important. I mentioned that several times. Spending data, market intelligence, and that's another topic that we covered quite a bit. Also priorities, SWOT analysis, risk, needs, support from leadership. We just mentioned about that. The roadmap, making sure that you have a north, right, where we're heading from a category standpoint and support your capital projects. And how to engage the teams and share the content. So perhaps on that last one, let me just make some comments. So there is a whole effort to develop the capital playbook, right? And I mentioned about engaging the team. So it's very important. But as we finalize the capital playbook, we need to share broadly, right? So I specifically share that with the whole capital buyers network. I utilize our monthly meetings to go through some of the critical contents with engineering leadership. I share with them as well the full-blown contents. I prepare normally a condensed version for more like a sharing opportunity, like 10, 15 minutes to share with their monthly meetings that we can share with the project managers and so forth. I do the same with leadership, not only engineering leadership, but capital leadership, procurement leadership as well. So I also think that these after the fact sharing of the contents is extremely important. And of course, any playbook is meant to be a live document, right? So it's a document for you to utilize through the whole year, to define, people's goals for the year, and these sort of things. So these were what I get prepared to share today. I'm not sure if you have any questions, comments, insights from what I just shared.
We do have one question that came in. To what extent have nearshoring or reshoring impacted your capital procurement strategies?
Can you say that again? You said reshoring?
To what extent have nearshoring or reshoring impacted your capital procurement strategies?
Reshoring impacted. Yeah, look, how can I say that? What do we see is that we buy some stuff externally. I'm talking about US specifically, right? We buy some stuff externally. We buy some stuff internal in US. What are we seeing over the last 3-4 years? I would say is that US as a whole, it seems to be, at least in our industry, seems to be more competitive with producing things abroad. Back in the day, we used to see a cost delta between US and outside US around 40%. We're seeing more in the 20% range now, and even some case cheaper in US than externally. And what we have been telling the project teams that we need to exercise the coding, the code of this equipment. Running through bidding process, we see still a huge variation. Okay, so it depends on each case. Also, we're using more and more air shipments. To be honest, with the difference between air shipments and ocean freight is not so big as it used to be. It's still much bigger, but not as big as it used to be. So that's something also that we have been exercising a little bit, especially when you have extended lead times.
Thank you very much. If there's any other questions, please put it in the chat and Klauss will get to you right away. Klauss, what's the best way for everybody to connect with you? Maybe LinkedIn?
Yeah, maybe LinkedIn. Yeah, please invite me in LinkedIn, and I'm always checking that. I'll be more than glad to answer any questions, share any thoughts that I may have, these sort of things.
Okay, great. I just put it in the chat so everybody can connect with you. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, it looks like we don't have any other questions or comments, but if anybody does, please just, put it in the chat and we'll get to you right away. But in the meantime, I would like to thank you, Klauss, for coming to our ISM community and to all of our attendees for joining us today. And I will be sending out the recording. We do not have slides for you today because of the proprietary information that would be displayed. So we cannot share that kind of information with you today, but everybody will have the recording and I will be sending out continuing education credit for joining us today. So it looks at this point, I think I'll close out the session. Thank you again for joining us and we'll see everybody next time. Thanks, Klauss.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you. Anytime. Take care.
Okay, thank you.